They fired me on a Wednesday. In a beige room with flickering LED lights and the smell of burnt coffee lingering like a bad decision. The new boss, Jordan, freshly imported from some management consultancy with a jawline shaped by arrogance, looked at me and said, "I'm not going to spend another dime on an incompetent employee." He didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just slid the termination letter across the table with the smug precision of a man who'd never been punched in the face by reality. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just smiled. Because 3 years ago, when I sold my startup, I wrote a clause into the acquisition agreement. A very specific clause. If I were ever terminated without cause, I had the right to buy the company back for the original sale price. $1. And Jordan? Jordan had no idea. But if we're being honest, and I think we should be at this point, this story doesn't begin with Jordan. It begins with a burned-out laptop in a fourth-floor walk-up in Seattle 7 years ago. No elevator, no insulation. Just me, a dream, and a UX prototype held together by duct tape, caffeine, and late-night tears. Back then, I didn't even call it a startup. It was just the thing I'm working on. A data platform that helped small businesses predict churn by analyzing customer behavior in real time. Not flashy, not sexy, but damn, it worked. I remember the exact moment I knew I had something. A florist down the street messaged me to say the tool warned her about a drop-off in engagement. She called a few customers, sent handwritten notes. Her monthly revenue went up 17% the next quarter. She cried. I cried. It was stupid, beautiful, and more real than anything I'd ever built. Soon the thing I was working on had a name, a logo, a registered trademark, and a team of 5 crammed into my living room, working off folding tables from IKEA. We called ourselves Pulse, because we helped small businesses feel the heartbeat of their customers. It was chaos. Beautiful chaos. We didn't sleep. We built. We failed. We patched things at 3 a.m. and then danced around my kitchen when the dashboards finally stopped crashing. 16 months later, we got our first investment offer. Then came a second. Then a third. But I didn't want the whole VC circus. What I needed was infrastructure. Servers, support, real people who knew how to scale. That's when a mid-sized analytics firm stepped in. They promised stability, resources, a future. "We want to scale your vision, not steal it," the CEO told me over rooftop drinks, while a violinist played something pretentious in the background. I was cautious. I'd seen too many founders get squeezed out of their own creations. So I hired a lawyer, Carmen. Fierce, no nonsense, the kind of woman who could read a contract like a battlefield map. Together, we built in protections, equity, decision-making power, and one clause that was my insurance policy. If I'm terminated without cause, I can repurchase Pulse for the original sale price. I remember Carmen raising an eyebrow. "You really think they'll go for this?" "They won't even notice it," I said. "It's hidden between indemnity terms and boilerplate language." They didn't. And for a while, I didn't need it. The first year post-acquisition was actually good. They let me run product. My team expanded. Pulse's user base tripled. I finally started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. It wasn't my living room anymore, but it still felt like mine. Until Jordan showed up. New management, new vision, new buzzwords. He walked in like he'd been sent to save us from ourselves. Started changing things that didn't need changing. Fired 2 of my original engineers for being culturally misaligned, which apparently meant they didn't fake laugh at his jokes. He held meetings about synergy and alignment and value-forward solutions, and I started to feel like a stranger in my own company. Then came the budget cuts. He slashed R&D, axed our customer feedback team, changed the product name from Pulse to Core Sense, which sounded less like a tech solution and more like a multivitamin. And still, I said nothing. Just took notes, waited, watched, until that Wednesday. The day he fired me for being misaligned with the company's new strategic direction. The same day, I walked out with nothing but a laptop sleeve and a half-used notebook. And a plan. That night, I called Carmen. No words, just 2 numbers. 14C. She exhaled. Still valid? Still valid. She didn't ask anything else, just said, I'll draft the notice and prepare the check. A single $1. They took my name off the website, cut my access, scrubbed my legacy like I'd never existed. And while they were busy planning their next rebrand and congratulating themselves on eliminating inefficiencies, my lawyer was preparing the paperwork that would blow the hinges off their empire. Because the thing about fine print? It doesn't matter. Until it does. They replaced me by Monday. Didn't even wait for my badge to deactivate before they posted the job listing. Head of Product Innovation. Urgently hiring. As if ripping out the brain of a system didn't require any recovery time. But I wasn't watching them from a distance. I was watching them from the shadows. You learn a lot when people think you've disappeared. For one, I learned that Jordan, my replacement, had pitched the board on a post-founder growth model, which is a shiny phrase that means, get rid of the people who care too much. They're expensive. I also learned that they'd quietly cut employee development stipends and were now outsourcing QA to a firm known for, let's say, generous bug thresholds. The cracks weren't forming. They were already there. Carmen and I met that Tuesday in a quiet corner booth of an overpriced cafe. She wore her usual all-black zero flare, except a silver pin shaped like a dagger. She ordered tea. I ordered clarity. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, a copy of the original contract, the drafted buyback notice, and a check. $1, blue ink. Signed by me. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because this wasn't just business. This was pulse. This was my nights, my weekends, my birthday spent fixing back-end crashes with one hand and eating boxed cake with the other. This was every sacrifice I made while others were living lives I could only scroll past on Instagram. This will hit hard, Carmen said quietly. They won't believe it's real. At first. I nodded. Let them laugh. Let them delay. I just want the clock ticking. See, here's the thing about Section 14C. They had 30 days to respond. 30. That was the timer. If they ignored it, I could take it to arbitration. If they rejected it, I could sue. But if they accepted it, even reluctantly, then Pulse would return to the hands of the woman who wrote its DNA into every line of code. And they wouldn't even see it coming. By Friday, I heard from Aisha, one of the last remaining product engineers from the early days. She texted, everything's falling apart. They're using slides from your old pitch deck like they're new ideas. Feels wrong. Just letting you know. She didn't know about the clause yet. Nobody did. But cracks like that, they matter. People feel when the soul of a company is gone. They feel it in the coldness of all-hands meetings, in the way new leadership dodges real questions, in the hallway silences that used to be laughter. They feel it in the emails that say realignment instead of layoffs. And inside Pulse, the soul had already left the building. By week 2, Carmen had sent the notice. FedEx. Certified. Time-stamped. A letter so short it felt disrespectful to the chaos it would unleash. Per Section 14C of the original purchase agreement, I hereby exercise my right to repurchase the entity known as Pulse Analytics at the original sale price. Please find enclosed payment in full. No emotion, no threats, just legal gravity. The kind of thing that makes a junior associate choke on their lunch when they open it. I imagined the moment it hit Jordan's desk. The confusion, the scoff, the she's bluffing. I didn't need to be there to know the script. It's the same one men like Jordan always follow. They dismiss. They delay. They deny. Until suddenly they're out of options and wondering how it all slipped through their fingers. By week 3, the silence turned heavy. No response. No formal reply from the company. But the whispers began. 2 clients reached out. Not directly, of course. Too risky. But through mutuals. The message was clear. If she's doing something new, let us know. We only stuck around because she was still involved. One of those clients was worth 6 figures a quarter. The other ran their entire infrastructure on our platform. I didn't respond. Not yet. Let the tension rise. Let the storm build quietly. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Carmen called me. They finally forwarded the notice to legal, and their general counsel, Marjorie Green, has questions. Like if the clause is real, if it's enforceable, if it's a typo. I laughed. Tell her it's not just real, it's permanent ink. Carmen chuckled. I already did. She's not happy. Good. That was the first drop of blood in the water. Because the thing about betrayal isn't just that they fired me. It's that they thought they were smart enough to get away with it. They thought I was sentimental, emotional, software. They forgot I was strategic. And I played the long game. The kind where $1, placed correctly, could become a wrecking ball. The kind where a legally binding clause could become a guillotine. They buried me with a calendar invite. Now I was digging them up with a pen. It started with a meeting. An emergency all-hands called on a Monday at 8:30 a.m., a time intentionally chosen to make people sweat. Organizational resilience strategy session, the calendar invite read. Translation, we're spiraling and we're trying to make it sound like leadership has a plan. Inside the glass-paneled war room, Jordan was pacing. I wasn't there, of course, but word gets out. One thing tech bros always underestimate? The loyalty of engineers. Aisha had her phone in her lap, sending me live updates like a war correspondent. 8:36 a.m. Jordan's wearing a Patagonia vest. That's never a good sign. 8:42 a.m. He just said we're evolving into a more agile organism. 8:44 a.m. Marjorie is glaring at him like she'd rather be hit by a Tesla. Apparently, someone finally read the clause. And not just skimmed it, but understood it. The implications. The language. The brutal precision of Section 14C, I could picture it perfectly. The blood draining from Jordan's face as he processed that they'd accepted a deal with a silent tripwire, one that I had just activated with a $1 check. He probably laughed at first. Or tried to. They always do. Until the legal department explained it in slow, terrifying detail. Yes, the clause is valid. No, there's no expiration. Yes, she's within the 30-day window. No, we never completed a full legal merger. Yes, the entity still exists under her name. The moment they realized Pulse wasn't actually absorbed, it was just leased. That's when the panic began. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Hi, Laura. This is Marjorie Green, General Counsel for CoreSense. I'd like to discuss the letter you sent. Straight to the point. No small talk. I respect that. I'm listening, I said. I want to clarify that while your clause appears facially legitimate, we believe the intent of the agreement may not align with your interpretation. I smiled into the phone. Marjorie, are you trying to say the contract feels wrong? A pause. No, I'm saying this would be highly disruptive. Disruption is innovation's twin. I'm sure Jordan has that quote framed in his office. She didn't laugh. Instead, she sighed. Look, there are a lot of moving parts here. We're open to a discussion. I'm not, I said. I've already paid. And with that, I ended the call. Power isn't loud. It's quiet. It's confident. It's knowing the exact leverage point and applying just enough pressure to make the structure buckle. And buckle it did. By the end of that week, 3 senior engineers walked out. No exit interviews, no farewell bagels, just cardboard boxes and middle fingers. One of them left a sticky note on his monitor that read, "We built Pulse to serve people, not marketing jargon. Good luck syncing your synergy." That one ended up on Twitter. 10,000 likes in a day. One investor retweeted it with the caption, "We need to talk about what happened to Pulse. I don't like what I'm hearing." Meanwhile, inside the company, Jordan tried to play it cool. Sent out an all-staff memo about navigating turbulence and remembering our core values. I got a copy forwarded to me by 3 people. Core values. They forgot the core of the company wasn't in their metrics. It was in the people who built it. By Saturday, Pulse's biggest client froze their next round of funding. Official reason, internal vendor review. Unofficial reason, they knew I was coming back. That's when the board finally stepped in. Not because they cared about me, but because now it was about money. Jordan was summoned to a private meeting on Sunday. 9 a.m. sharp. No assistants, no cover story. Just the people who write the checks asking one simple question. Did you know she could do this? And Jordan, confident, cocky, never read a footnote Jordan, had to admit he didn't. They fired him the next morning. No farewell speech, no email blast, just silence. Aisha messaged me one word, decapitated. But this wasn't about vengeance. Not really. This was about restoration. Pulse had become unrecognizable, a ghost of its former self, parading around in pastel rebrands and bloated vision decks. And now, piece by piece, I was reclaiming it. Not with rage, but with precision. They thought I was gone, that I'd cry, move on, start over. But I was never starting over. I was starting again, from exactly where I left off. By the end of the week, Carmen had sent over the final documents to the board. Clear, elegant, legally airtight. I was exercising my right. And the funny thing is, they still had one more chance to stop me. One more window to negotiate, delay, fight. But they didn't, because now they were afraid of what I'd do if they pushed back. And that was the moment I knew I had won. The envelope arrived on a Monday, 9:12 a.m. Stamped, signed, delivered. It was hand-carried to the board's interim chair by a courier in a navy blazer who didn't smile. Inside, $1, a legal declaration of asset repurchase, and a clause that had just grown teeth. By noon, the whispers turned to roars. Emails flew. Slack threads exploded. A crisis meeting was called. Emergency Zoom invites went out with subject lines like urgent, clause 14, see action item. And somewhere inside the 4th floor executive wing, surrounded by soundproof walls and desperation, someone finally said it out loud. She owns it. She owns Pulse again. But I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. I was pacing a quiet office 3 blocks away, furnished with 2 desks, 1 espresso machine, and a single framed photo of the original Pulse team, standing shoulder to shoulder in a kitchen that smelled like burnt toast and soldered wires. Carmen sat at the desk across from me, typing with one hand, sipping tea with the other. Her calm annoyed me, in a good way. "They'll try to stall," she said. "Probably say there's ambiguity." "There's not," I said. "They'll try anyway." I nodded. Let them. Power doesn't need to scream. It waits. It watches. It prepares. They had made their mistake. And I had made my move. By Tuesday, the Pulse website started glitching. Old files reappeared. My founder's profile photo resurfaced for a few minutes before being yanked down again. A remnant of a forgotten internal database pinged out an automated newsletter with my name in the signature. It was like the company itself was trying to remember me, or warn them. Jordan was gone. The board had gone quiet. And inside the company, something new was taking root. Or maybe something old was waking back up. Sam texted me at 11:04 a.m. Sam, the last intern I ever hired. Bright-eyed, code-brained, always spilled his lunch on something vital. His message was simple. They're unprepared. People are talking. It feels like the lights are coming back on. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened the folder Carmen had prepared. Inside, the finalized transfer of controlling shares. My name. My company. Again. At 3 p.m., I walked past the Pulse building. Not to gloat. Not to peacock. I wore jeans, a black hoodie, and sunglasses. Blended in with the crowd, carrying a tote bag and a secret. I stopped at the cafe next door and ordered a coffee. That's when I saw it. Through the glass. The executive team pacing inside a conference room, visibly arguing. Vanessa, the new head of culture and brand identity, the one who once replaced user feedback reports with emotional vibe mapping, was pointing at a whiteboard with desperation in her eyes. I didn't have to hear her to know what she was saying. We lost control. What do we do? You don't do anything, Vanessa. You did this. You underestimated a woman who built your entire platform using a laptop with a cracked screen and a belief stronger than your marketing buzzwords. And now? Now you're just watching the consequence arrive. By Thursday, the headlines started dropping. Founder reclaims tech startup with $1 clause, a masterclass in fine print power moves. The return of Pulse, how a dismissed founder took back her company overnight. The dollar that sank a CEO. My inbox started flooding. Old clients, former engineers, journalists, podcasters. Even 2 angel investors who'd passed on Pulse in the early days wrote awkward apologies wrapped in offers. But the only message that made me pause came from Julian, our former head of UX. He had been quiet for over a year. Left the company the week Jordan introduced a minimalist data flow model that stripped his team of everything useful. His email read, "I don't know what you're building now, but if there's a seat, I'll stand until there is." That was the moment I let myself breathe. Not because I'd won, but because something worth building was ready to be rebuilt. Friday morning, I walked into our new office space. 4th floor, clean, bright, unbranded, no motivational posters, just one wall painted white, waiting for a new roadmap. Sam was already there. So was Aisha. Carmen brought donuts. I brought something else. A frame. Inside it, the check. $1, slightly creased. Blue ink, bold stroke. I hung it on the wall. Not as a trophy. As a warning. Read the contract. At 2:47 p.m., the final confirmation came through. Ownership transferred. Assets reassigned. Infrastructure unlocked. Pulse was mine again. No handshakes, no parades. Just a digital signature, a system reboot, and a server that purred like it had been holding its breath for years. They thought firing me would erase me. They forgot I built the source code. They replaced me in a boardroom. But I came back through the clause they never read. And now? Now I wasn't just back. I was building something sharper, smarter, louder, something with fire in its wiring and memory in its walls. The relaunch wasn't glamorous. No neon lights, no hype video, no champagne fountains or TED-style spotlight moments. Just 10 of us in folding chairs around a whiteboard with the words, Pulse 2.0, written in red marker. Julian brought bagels. Sam had a busted projector. Carmen brewed the coffee herself. It was a war room, not a launch party. And that's exactly how we wanted it. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about resurrection. We didn't start with strategy decks or market forecasts. We started with a question. What made Pulse matter? Not the tech. Not the UI. Not the pitch. It was trust. It was knowing that someone on the other side of the dashboard actually cared whether your business lived or died. whether your customers stayed, whether you could pay rent this month. It was personal. Somewhere along the way, Pulse had lost that. And now we were going to bring it back. One painful, beautiful sprint at a time. The first 2 weeks were brutal. Old code had to be rewritten, licenses repurchased, servers reconfigured. Our cloud environment was a mess of outdated credentials and broken pipelines. Vanessa's team had renamed every key file with euphemisms like Synergy Map Final V4. Use this one. And it took Julian 3 full days just to untangle their nonsense. But no one complained. Not once. We were too busy. Too wired in. Too hungry. The kind of hunger that only comes after they tell you you're done. I made a rule. No suits, no buzzwords, no hierarchy. If you had an idea, pitch it. If you saw a problem, fix it. I wasn't interested in status meetings or branded t-shirts. We printed one thing. One sign taped to the inside of our front door. Earn it again. And slowly we did. By month's end, the first clients returned. Quietly at first. Private emails, polite check-ins. Then came the referrals. Then came the public declarations. Joya, our first enterprise client, posted a photo of our new dashboard with the caption, "Feels like coming home." It went viral. Investors noticed. Competitors noticed. The old Pulse board definitely noticed. Even Brent, the executive who once mocked me for emotional attachment, posted a LinkedIn article titled, "Why Founders Matter More Than Ever." He blocked me the same day. Meanwhile, the Pulse brand that CoreSense tried to keep running? It withered. You can't fake soul. You can't scale care from a spreadsheet. And you can't replace a founder with someone who doesn't understand the why behind the code. The media storm came next. First a blog post, then a podcast episode, then an op-ed. She got fired. Then she took back her company for $1. A clause, a check, and a quiet revolution. Laura Winters and the legal boomerang, when fine print fights back. They called me everything from brilliant to dangerous to the new face of founder resilience. But I wasn't chasing titles. I just wanted my company back. And I got it. Not with fury, with foresight. The day I was invited to speak at a tech conference, ironically the same one Jordan once bragged about keynoting, I almost said no. Too tired, too busy, too not interested in clapping rooms. But Carmen said, they need to hear it. And maybe I needed to say it. So I walked on stage, no slides, no script. Just me. I told them the truth about the microwave, the $1 clause. The day I was fired and the moment I smiled because I knew I was already prepared. About building something with love and watching it get turned into a quarterly bullet point by people who never stayed late or skipped meals or poured their rent into a product launch. And then I told them the part no one talks about. The loneliness, the weight of silence after betrayal, the urge to burn it all down versus the patience to wait for the exact moment to strike. And the lesson I left them with: always read the contract. Especially if you're trying to erase the woman who wrote it. The room went still. Then it erupted. Not because I built Pulse, but because I took it back. Back at the office, the framed check still hangs above the door. $1, crumpled slightly. A reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, quiet, legal, lethal. I'm not angry anymore. I'm focused. Because revenge fades. But rebuilding? That lasts.